Rahim, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. So last time we did the first part of the chapter of Zakat, but because there was no record of it, we didn't record it. I'm going to repeat it today, a bit more summarized. It'll be beneficial for those who sat down last time to kind of strengthen their information. If you didn't come last time, then this will be helpful, because for me to continue in the chapter of Zakat without you knowing what we talked about last time would be disastrous. You wouldn't understand anything, because it's all built on the first couple of words. So we'll start from the beginning of the chapter of Zakah. تجب الزكاة في خمسة أشياء. So I'm going to write these things down. I advise you to do the same if you want to keep up and be able to keep up. So there are 5 things that we pay zakah for. Okay, there's 5 things. The first one, al-mawashi. Livestock. The second one is al-athman. Money. Anything that resembles currency in any way. Wal-zuru', agriculture. Thimar, fruit. And finally, وعروض التجارة, which are trade goods. To a certain extent, عروض التجارة means trade goods, but sometimes the word عروض could mean different things. But عروض التجارة means trade goods, whatever you have prepared for trade or you made off trade. Anything that is you have prepared to sell, you're putting it through through the process of selling it or buying it. Okay. فأما المواشي فتجب الزكاة في 3 أجناس منها وهي الإبل والبقر والغنم. As for livestock zakah is obligatory in 3 species: cattle, camels, and sheep. Sheep, also with them goats. Sheep and goats are considered from a religious perspective the same thing. Of course, obviously biologically they are not, but religiously they are the same thing, right? So livestock, that's what we mean by livestock. وشرائط وجوبها 6 أشياء. Now, what are the conditions for zakah being obligatory on anything at all? Yeah, so number 1, these are the conditions. So the first one is Islam. Second one is freedom. Third one, al-milk at-tam, which is full ownership. Full ownership. One nisab, passage of a year. What year? Solar year or lunar year? Lunar year. It's a lunar year, not a solar year. So we don't. If you give your zakah in June, don't give it in June every year. You have to give it 10 days before every year, right? Because the lunar year is 10 days shorter than the solar year. So you would, if you want to, when you start counting for yourself a year from owning something, you see when it is in the Hijri year, and then you book a year from there, or you start counting the year from then. Passage of a year. Sorry, we missed one. I missed one nisab. I missed a nisab. Nisab is minimum amount. Minimum amount. And the final one, as-sawm. Now, as-sawm is a condition that is specific for livestock. As-sawm is a condition for the Shafi'iyya, specific for livestock. Meaning, the Jamhur also accept that, but the Malikiyya specifically say it doesn't have to be sa'ima. Sawm means, I'm just going to add this condition, I'll let you ask. Sawm means that it grazes naturally. Meaning you don't pay for its food. You don't buy food for it. You just allow it to graze in Allah's earth. Yani it's free as far as what it's eating. It's just grazing. So if it's grazing naturally for the Shafi'i, that's a condition for you to be able to have to pay zakah upon it. All right? Yes. So you have to be a Muslim. We're going to ask a kafir to pay zakah? There you go. Sure. So trade goods. All right. وَأَمَّا الْأَثْمَانُ فَشَيْئَانِ. As far as what money is considered, money are two things. Gold and silver. The reason for 99 to 99.9% of all wars on the planet, gold and silver have caused most of it, or whatever is branched from gold and silver. All right. Baba, شوف إذا أمك بري بابا. Take a look and see if your mom is outside. طيب. وشرائط وجوب الزكاة فيها 5 أشياء. And the conditions of zakah being obligatory are 5 things. Islam, حرية, freedom, الملك التام, full ownership, والنصاب والحول, minimum amount and passage of a year. So for gold and silver, there's really nothing additional that we'll talk about regarding more conditions. It's the same number of conditions, okay? Yes?
So full ownership, if you have like a car, you have it on finance.
Just a bit. You have to be patient. We'll come to all these things. Just be patient. Let me go through them one by one, inshallah, and I'll get to, because we will cover stuff like that, like things that are more modern problems in terms of buying things and needing this. But give me a second. Let me finish this. I will answer because I know what you're talking about. Is it full ownership? Is not full ownership? So give me a while. Let me just come to that, inshallah. وأما الزروع, and as for agriculture, فتجب الزكاة فيها بثلاثة شرائط. In addition to these conditions for agriculture, we have 3 additional conditions. أن يكون مما يزرعه الآدميون. It has to be something that is planted by people, meaning you have to go and plant it. It can't be something that you just put water and it comes out. Some pieces of earth around the world, if you irrigate the land, certain plants will come out. Some of these plants are edible, most of them are not, but the edible plants that come from the earth that you don't plant yourself, you don't buy the seeds and plant them, there's no zakah on that. For example, in Syria, something called baqli. Al-baql. It's a small plant with small little leaves that are round. You take them out, put them in tabbouleh and fattoush and different other food. But we don't pay zakah for that. There's no zakah on that. Go see your mom's waiting for you outside. You'll go see her outside. Okay? So the first condition has to be planted by people. It can't come naturally from the ground. The second condition, أن يكون قوتا مدخرا. It has to be what was the word we used last time? A staple food crop. صح? A staple food crop. So a staple food crop. It has to be a staple food crop, which is something that people use. I'll explain that in a second. I'll give examples of what a staple food crop is in a minute. وأن يكون نصابا, and it has to be a minimum amount, which is the same thing here. Now, what is taken away from these conditions for agriculture? What's taken away? It's something that we don't need. Passage of a year. When do you pay zakah for agriculture?
Harvest season?
Yes, when you harvest. The moment you harvest, you have to pay. So no passage of a year. But these 2 are added to it. Now we'll talk about nisab in a minute. We'll talk about when we study it on its own, inshallah. All right. So that's for zurwa. Amma thimar, as for fruit. What are the examples? I didn't give you guys the examples.
Yeah, wheat, barley.
Yeah, so what exactly? So what they are, I'm going to give you the things that they agree to, because there are certain crops that not everyone agrees to within the madhab and with other madhab, but know the ones that they agree to, which are wheat, barley, what else?
Lentils, rice.
Rice and corn. So fruits. وأما الثمار, فتجب الزكاة في شيئين منها ثمرة النخل وثمرة الكرم. There's only two types of fruit that are considered that we pay zakah for. Only two. What are the two types of fruit that we pay zakah for?
Dates and grapes.
So dates and grapes.
Bye, Baba.
Bye, Habibi. See you at home. So dates and grapes is what we pay zakah for. Now, is there any possibility that we pay for anything else? Traditionally, within all form of madhab, no. But today, there are more analogies that can be drawn. I'll talk about that at the end of this of the chapter of zakat. I'll talk about what analogies we can draw in terms of for fruit specifically, because the demographic of fruit and the usage of fruit has changed a lot in the last number of years. وشرائط الزكاة فيها أربعة أشياء الإسلام والحرية والملك التام والنصاب. And the conditions for fruit, for dates and grapes specifically, are Islam, freedom, full ownership, and minimum amount, not the passage of a year. So just like agriculture, there's no passage of a year. It's at harvest. Of course, minimal amount, we'll talk about that in a second. Now the final part, which is trade goods. وأما عروض التجارة فتجب الزكاة فيها بالشرائط المذكورة في الأثمان. Refer back to money. Exactly the same thing. You treat it the way we treat money. When we study gold and silver and money, we treat it the exact same way. Anything you have set up for buying and selling, you will treat it. This is capital that you have. You will treat it based on its worth, whatever face value it has. And this is something we have to differentiate clearly when we start talking. So this is the breakdown. This is the general breakdown of how we work with zakah. Can someone give me a tissue so I can wipe this off? We're going to start by studying livestock. All right. We're going to start by studying the first one, which is livestock. We're going to talk about cattle, camels, sheep, and goats. Of course, this is something not many of you need. I don't think any of you need, but I won't take too much time. I won't go into too many details, and but I will explain the basic idea just in case just so you know, inshallah, understand it.
The wheat, barley, and that stuff. Can you say in Arabic? Is it in the book here?
Yes. So al-qamh. I don't know if it's in the book. Al-qamhu was-sha'ir. Barley is sha'ir. Lentils adas. Rice is arz or ruz, and then corn is durra. Right? So these are the five that are agreed upon. There are other types that scholars will disagree, meaning they'll say, is it not, and they'll go back and forth. But these are the ones that are agreed upon. We're not going to go into much. Again, unless you own land and you have fruits or agriculture, this is not going to matter to you too much. You have to go into more detail if you do. But this is just for you to know, generally speaking. Okay? So let's take the first. Is this clear? Can I take this off? Are we good for this? So we're going to start with the first one, which is livestock. All right. Make sure you know the conditions. I'm going to leave the conditions up there. These are important. You need to keep in mind these conditions. You will forget them. You'll find yourself asking me a question, and the answer of your question will be just that one of these conditions was not met and you didn't pay attention. So keep in mind these conditions and when they apply and when they don't apply. Okay. All right. So let's start with the first one. Livestock. وأول نصاب الإبل خمس وفيها شاة. So we'll start with camels. Now, before I start, let me make this very clear. If you have camels, let's say you have 15 camels. Now the question I asked before we talk about zakah with you is, why do you own these camels? What are you doing with these camels? What's the point of having them? Do you carry on them? Do you use them to carry merchandise from one place to the other? Yes? No zakah in them at all. If you use them to plow the earth, no zakah in them at all. If you use them, you're preparing them for slaughter, so you can sell the meat. Or if you're preparing them using them for milk, yeah. Or you're using them for them to give birth to other, you're just making more numbers of them, right? Then the zakah applies in them the way I'm going to explain it right now. But if you have them with the intention of selling them, then you treat them as trade goods. You treat them as gold and silver. They change immediately. I'll repeat that again. So we ask the question, why? Why do you own these camels? you will have one of three answers. Wallahu a'lam, to my understanding. You work. They are a part of your business. They work. They're working animals. Whether they carry water or carry merchandise or they plow the earth, they're working animals. There is no zakah on working animals. Okay? With the khilaf of madhahib, of course, the Malikiya specifically have a different understanding of these things. But the Jumhur, this is what they say. The other question is, the other reason, is it prepared for reproduction? Or for dhabh, for slaughter, or for milk? Then this is where livestock zakah applies. Livestock zakat. The third, for sell. You're putting together. You are feeding them. You are feeding them in a big barn. You're preparing them so that someone can come and buy this merchandise from you, buy these camels from you. Then these are for sale. Then they're treated as trade goods zakah.
What if you have just pets?
So it doesn't, because there's a minimum amount, it doesn't make any sense for you to have 5 camel pets. What are you exactly doing with them?
Riding them, like
Yeah, so again, working animals, they're being ridden. You're riding them, you're applying, they're not being used for reproduction, for slaughter, or you're not going to eat them, you're not eating them or using their dairy, nor are you preparing them for slaughter, nor are you preparing them for reproduction. If you're preparing for selling them, then they're going to be treated as trade goods zakah. And this is very different. Trade goods zakah differ from livestock zakah. It's not the same thing. These are not equal. They're very different. They're very different in the way that we deal with them. And you'll see how the breakdown will differ significantly. What we're going to study when I say livestock, I'm going to study for you the livestock. They're prepared for reproduction, slaughtering, or milk. What are the conditions that we need to have? You have to be a Muslim, you have to be free, you have to have full ownership, there has a passage of a year on them, and they have to have a minimal amount, right? The most minimal, what's the smallest amount for camels in terms of paying zakah? 5. So we start with 5, right? Bigger or equal to 5. I'm gonna do this differently. Yes?
For livestock, right?
Yeah, this is for livestock, right? So we're gonna. There's one more condition that applies to livestock specifically. What's the condition that I added for you when we were doing the thing? There's one more condition. The sawm. What's a sawm?
natural grazing.
Natural grazing. Now, these guys over here that are prepared for reproduction, slaughter, or milk, if you are feeding them for half of the year or more, no zakat. If you are feeding them and you are paying for their food, you're paying for the money. You're using money paying for the food for half of the year or more, then no zakat. But if they are eating, they're grazing for the majority of the year, meaning you're not paying for their food, then zakah applies. If they're prepared for selling, it doesn't matter whether you grazed them or you fed them. Are you understanding the thing? You can tell me, well, I have 100 camels, but I have to pay for their food. That means there's no zakat. Well, I ask you, why do you have these camels? Are they for slaughtering, milk, or reproduction, or are they trade goods? Are you preparing them to sell them? If you tell me I'm preparing them to sell them, then no, there's zakat on them normal. It doesn't matter whether you're feeding them or not. You're going to treat them as trade goods. You're going to take out 2.5% of their value. Understand? You take 2.5% of their value. Here, we're going to the breakdown is different. It's going to be very different, the breakdown for livestock zakat.
What if they're grazing on the crops that you've planted for them?
Yeah, the thing is, are those crops, did you pay for them or are they naturally there? If you paid for them, then you paid for their food. No, the same thing. But if they're grazing in land where you didn't pay for any of the crops that exist in it, it's just the grass and whatever's on the earth, and you're not paying for that for the majority of the year, then you pay zakah. But if for half of the year or more, you had to pay for their food, then there's no livestock zakat.
We don't pay for the crops, for the fodder of the animal. We just grow, cultivate, like back home.
Yeah, but did you pay money to grow these, to cultivate the earth.
We say I own land and I just
Yeah. How do you grow it?
just from the previous crop.
Yeah, what do you do? What do you use? Do you pay for the seeds? Do you pay for the water? Do you pay for anything, or does it just come out on its own? See, that's the question that we're asking. If you pay for it, then you're paying for their food. And if you're not paying for it, this is the ushub, these are the herbs and the the herbage that comes from the ground on its own, you're not paying for it, then that's considered natural grazing. But if you're paying for the food, you're actually paying, you're putting money and seed to get these crops so you can feed the animals, then you're paying for it, and there's no zakah if for half of the year or more you had to pay for the food.
So like, does this apply to land that you don't own or land that you own? 'Cause, like,
This apply, it doesn't matter. You own, you don't own, doesn't matter.
even if you bought the land for them to feed off of, like the land and the herbs, or like the herbage that was on it, the vegetation.
You bought the land.
So let's say there's a piece of land and it has like plants that they could eat, and you bought it for that reason.
No, you can't buy it for that reason. You buy the land, and then after you buy the land, if you have to pay, you have to put money in to bring out the crops for them to eat, then that's considered you paid for their food. But if they're just grazing on whatever exists within that land normally, then no. Because you bought land, you don't buy land to feed livestock, you buy food to feed livestock. So what we ask, because you have to do, you pay for the food that came out, the crops that came out, not did you pay for the land that the crops are on, all right?
Just in case you own your seed from the previous crop.
Yeah, you own it, so did you pay for it originally or not?
You already paid for initially.
Did you initially pay for these seeds or not? Are they yours? Are they given to you for free? What are they?
Maybe 5 years ago, first time you paid, and
Yeah, so you paid. So you paid for the seeds. And the seed, when you put them in the ground, are you going to pay for the water, or you're not going to pay for the water? Right? So these questions have to be answered, and then you have to say, is the majority of time spent naturally grazing, or is the majority of time spent eating food, crops that you paid for? You actually pay, you put in the money for these crops to exist. So if the answer is the majority of the time they're grazing on something that is natural that you did not pay for, then you pay zakah for these animals. And if they graze for the majority of the time on things that you had to pay for, then you don't have to pay livestock zakah.
if you don't pay for the seed, don't pay for the water, but you work there in your own land,
Then that's natural grazing as well. Yeah.
If a person is like a strict camel trader, so they don't have the nisab of their own wealth, let's say they only have like $500, and then they have like 20 camels, so would they estimate the value of what the camel would be worth when it's sold to figure out the 2.5% zakat?
Yeah, or based on numbers. So if you have 20 camels, what's rub' al-ushur from 20 camels? What's 1 on 40? So if you have 40 camels, and they're prepared for you're going to sell them, right? That's the thing. Then you're going to pay rub' al-ushur, which is 1 camel. That's 2.5%. 40 is 1, right? So if you have 40 camels and they're prepared for selling, then you're going to give out one camel.
Like just as a free kind of thing. Like you just give away 1 camel.
Yeah, you give zakah of 1 camel. That's 2.5% of what you own. Or you can give out the Imam al-Nawawi بالمجموع said يخرج القيمة مالا إذا لم يجد الشاة أو الإبل. I mean, you can put out the zakah in cash, in gold and silver, if you don't have the actual camel there. When it's for selling trade, it's better to give it out in gold and silver. It's better to give out in money. It's more yeah.
The textbook mentions a shah or something. Shah.
So shah. No, this is different. You're reading livestock now. You're not reading about trades. Okay. We have to differentiate between camels or livestock that is prepared for reproduction, slaughter, or milk. And in that case, we're going to follow the livestock zakat format. And if we're preparing these animals for selling, then we follow the trade goods zakat format. So what I'm going to talk about right now is camels and sheep and cattle that are prepared for reproduction, slaughter, or milk. That's what we have them for. They're not working animals where there's no zakat at all. And they're not trade goods. I'm not putting them together to sell them. I will talk about trade goods within livestock at the end when I'm done talking about this part. This method doesn't go into these details, but I'll go into them just so that you have a complete picture. But this is what we're talking about. We're talking about reproduction, slaughter, and milk. That's what we're talking about right now.
If I paid tax, I should pay zakah also?
Yes.
It's different.
Very different. Okay. So what we're talking about now is livestock zakah. It is paid for livestock you own that you have with the intention of reproduction for slaughter or for milk, something like that, or for to make them a bit bigger. But you don't have the intention of selling them. If the point is just selling them, then we treat them as trade goods, not as livestock. Okay. So now, what is the breakdown for camels? وأول نصاب الإبل خمس وفيها شاة. وفي 10 شاتان. So if you have 5 camels, up to 9, you give zakah a shat. Now, it's not a bad word. It's the Arabic word shah. I agree. Yeah, you're right. So shah. What is shah? What is a shah? Who knows what a shah is? This is important that you know what the difference is.
A young camel? A baby camel?
It's a sheep. It's a 1-year-old sheep. It's a sheep between 1 and 2 years old. So it's a sheep between 1 and 2 years old.
So if you don't have...
So you give the amount. So in case you don't have sheep, or why is it sheep for 5 to 9 camels? Because giving away a camel is a huge loss of your capital. Camels are much more expensive than sheep are. They're way more expensive. So for you to give away from 5 to 9 camels, give a camel away, that's a lot. So within Rahmah, you give out just 1 sheep, a young sheep, only between 1 and 2 years old, and that's much cheaper. So you buy a sheep and then you give it out zakah, or you give away its value zakah. That's what you do.
Even now?
Yeah, even now. So if you were, of course, you guys would have to be, shepherds. You have to own camels and like if you own camels, you know people who own sheep and people who own cattle, and you can buy a sheep and sell it, or you can trade it for a number of camels and then give one away. Yes.
So if you have 5 to 9 camels, you get 1.
1 shah. Okay, that's what you do.
All the camels must be at least 1 year old. All camels.
No, it doesn't matter how old they are. Yeah, it doesn't matter how old they are. It doesn't matter. So now we're going to count up to 20. So then 10. وفي 10 شاه. So and then 10 to 14, we have 2. 2 shah from 10 to 14. And then if you have from 15, وفي 15 ثلاث شياه to 19, you have 3 shah. That's how much you give away. وفي 20 أربع شياه. And then from 20 to 24, أربع شاه, 4 of them. Okay? So with the first 24 camels that you have, you're going to be giving zakah in the value of sheep, 1-year-old, between 1 and 2-year-old sheep, which is quite cheap. It's a very small, it's not, again, giving away a camel is a huge amount, and that's what Imam Nawawi said, that you can give it away in cash if you don't own a sheep and you have no access to sheep. Like let's say by some miracle you're a shepherd of camels and there are no sheep whatsoever around you, and you have no way to actually purchase one, then you estimate the value of a 1 to 2-year-old sheep, and then you would pay that value in zakah, and that would be enough. Okay, yes. Again, these are things you're probably not going to go through a lot of them, so I don't want to go into too much detail in explaining them, because they're just, for you, they're going to be hypotheticals for most of your lives. I don't want to waste too much time talking about them, but I want you to understand the basics. وفي 25 بنت مخاض. Now, so from 25 up to 35, you give away a bint makhad. So bint makhad is a camel that is between 1 and 2 years old. Bint makhad is a camel, a female camel, between 1 and 2 years. Yes, female camel between 1 and 2 years. If you have between 25 and 35 camels, you give away 1 bint makhad. 1 bint makhad is given away.
Is a female worth more than a male because they have the milk?
Yeah, the milk, and they can reproduce. Like your male will never get pregnant, so you'll never have another camel. But only if she's a female camel, you'll be able to have another camel.
You know how you were saying if you don't have enough, or like if you don't have the sheep, what if you slaughtered it and then gave out the meat for it? Does that also count?
No, you have to give away a sheep. Yeah, a live sheep. Yeah, not dead. Yeah, or given the amount that it would be worth. You have to pay for the amount that would be worth. All right, so now we'll move on to the next. So وفي 36 بنت لبون. So these are just names of so from 36 to 45, isn't it? Yeah, 45. You give away bint laboon. Yeah, so yeah. Bint, it means female, right? So it's a female camel that's between 2 and 3 years of age. So this is between 1 and 2 years of age, and Bint Laboon is between female camel between 2 and 3 years of age. Notice that after 24 camels, we stop giving zakah in sheep. We start giving zakah in camels, right? And if you don't have one of these, you give something better than it, or you give its value. Let's say that all your camels, there's not one bint makhad or not one bint laboon. You give something better than what you have, or you give whatever you have in its value. You buy one and you give it in its value. Okay. وفي 46 حقة. وفي 46 حقة إلى 61 يعني 60. You give away a حقة.
Was this all like revelation?
Yes, all these ahadith, all of them. So 3 to 4 years. There's a lot of hadith. I don't want to go into all the details because they're breaking down all the hadith and what he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A lot of evidence. This is just to give you the kind of the summary of it all within the Shafi'i madhab, which is the Jamhur madhab for most things. Only in specific stuff did the Shafi'iyya leave the Jamhur's opinion, but mostly what the Shafi'iyya say, the Malikiyya specifically have a very different breakdown. They'll be the most interesting ones studying zakat because they have a different understanding of things. You'll find differences, but most of them are the same besides them. Female camel, so I'm writing just the numbers because it's the same thing. Female camel 1 to 2 years, female camel 2 to 3 years, and female camel 3 to 4 years. Just حقة. It's called a حقة. وفي 46 حقة, right? So HIKKAH. In Arabic حقة, حاء قاف هاء تاء مربوطة.
Easier now.
Yeah. All right. وفي 61 جذعة. So from 61 to 75, we have jad'a there. That makes my life, makes my life much easier.
Old camel.
Yeah. All right, which is 4 to 5, obviously. Oh. See, you've never been to you probably haven't been to your countries or our countries. I've seen 15,000 camels in one place. 15,000. I've seen them all in one place. 15,000 camels. I've seen them with my own eyes. Like I was standing there. It's amazing. Like the sight of it is scary. And it's one shepherd, and he's usually your age. And it's all one sound he makes. Like he just stands there and makes some sound that I don't know how he makes it, and all the camels go in a direction. And you're talking millions of dollars. Some shepherds own their capital that they have is within millions of dollars if they were to sell the livestock that they have. But most of them, because it's a tradition in their family, they don't sell any of the livestock. They use it, they reproduce, they use it for milk, and they just pay zakah for it and go on. If it's prepared for selling, then you treat it like trade goods.
Someone told me that a teacher of mine told me it was like he compared it to having a Mercedes.
Yeah, so each car. Yeah, it's very, very expensive. Extremely expensive. All right.
So 61 to 75 is what?
Jad'a, which is a 4 to 5 year old camel. They're not that old. 4 to 5 is not that old. Like it's not young, obviously, but it's not that old. Now, from 76, وفي 76 بنت لبون. So 2 bint laboon. Right? So this is the thing. I'm not requiring any of you to memorize any of this. Just as long as you understood the conditions, you understood the difference between camels or livestock that is prepared for working animals and are prepared for reproduction, milk, and what was the other one that we talked about?
Milk and slaughter.
Yeah, for slaughter. And then the difference is if we have them prepared for selling them. Just know those differences and that we have to treat them differently. So for you, if you are able to say, okay, why do you have this livestock? And they tell you I have them prepared for selling, then you tell them no, you don't pay it like this, you have to pay it like trade goods. Or if they say no, I have it ready for slaughter, I want to eat its meat or drink its milk, then you tell them, well, there's a breakdown that you have to go ask someone who specializes in the breakdowns, right? So you don't have to memorize this stuff. We had to memorize it when we were doing our exams back in the day. I still don't know them by heart. Like I have to go look at the breakdown myself. I don't require anyone to memorize this by heart. It's a bit complicated. There's no point. We don't live in a time or a place where this is very common for us to know.
Does the Sahaba know all this by heart? Like they just?
They had a qadi. Like they had a judge who would do these things. And that's why zakah was something done by the state, which made it much easier. Okay. وفي 91 حقتان. So 2 hiqqah. So hiqqah is 3 to 4 years, which is more valuable. So you pay 2 hiqqah from 91 to 120. وفي 121 3 بنات لبون. 3 بنت لبون.
So in above, 121 and above.
And then after that, so if you have 121, you do 3 بنت لبون. And then ثم في كل 40 بنت لبون وفي كل 50 حقة. And then after 121, every 40 you give a bint laboon, and every 50 you give a hiqqah.
Just to, like, the shepherds have to, like, every day count their sheep, like.
No, so that they don't count their sheep every day. No, what they do is no. So you owned, the moment you start owning 5, that's the minimum amount, that's the amount nisab. I have 5 sheep, camels, 5 camels today. I mark down that day. It's what is it today? It's the 24th of Rabi' al-Thani, right? Now next year on the 24th of Rabi' al-Thani, I count my camels, and I see. Let's say by then I'm really good as a shepherd, and I have 26 camels. I give bint makhab.
So if you have 4, then after a year you get 5. You start from
The moment you have 5, you start counting. You don't count before that. You count from when you have 5. When you have 5, you start counting a year. Right? A year later, you may still have 5. Then you give a shah. You may have 4. You don't give anything. You've sold them, right? You don't do anything. But if you sold them, that means you had them ready for selling them. That means you're going to treat them as trade goods. Do trade goods also have the year? Yes, they still also have the year law. So we still have to after a year look at them. But if you have them ready for trading, then you have to pay their amount differently. If they're trade goods, none of this matters. What matters is 2.5% of the value of these camels. If they reach the minimum amount, what minimum amount do they need to reach if they're prepared for selling? The minimum amount of gold and silver, not the minimum amount of 5 camels. Are you understanding the difference here? So if I'm preparing to sell them, then I'm focusing on the minimum amount for gold and silver, and I give 2.5% of what I own. If I don't have them ready for selling, I have them ready for reproduction, slaughter, or milk, then I have to do this breakdown. Are you seeing the difference here?
And this is after selling or each year?
No, each year, not after selling. After selling, they're gone, yeah.
But currency keeps changing, so.
So gold and silver is what we keep it to. Yeah, so I'll explain to you gold and silver in a minute, and then you'll know we have to keep it to gold and silver, not to dollars or money. Yeah.
What if you change your intention of why you have the camels? Like, let's say halfway through the year, you plan to sell them. You couldn't. You're like, all right, I'll just keep them for slaughter.
So whatever is more.
Whichever is more.
Whatever amount of zakah is going to be more, that's what you give. If you change what you're doing in the middle of the year, which is very rare, usually people who own livestock know why they own livestock off the bat. Like people don't. You have to be a noob in owning livestock to change in the middle of the year of why you own them. If you know why you have them, you either for selling or for reproduction and slaughter. If you change, then you find out which one would be worth more. I mean, which amount of zakah would add up to more, and then you would give that out, so you could be safe. Because that's where the ulama they differ on whether you stick to the original intention or you stick to the second intention. Do you start counting the year later after that, or what do you do? So it's just better to give out the bigger amount. That way you're safe, inshallah. This is the breakdown for camels. We didn't talk about sheep or cows yet.
Quick question.
Yes.
When 122 plus is what? Every 4? I didn't get that.
After 121, every 40 you give bint laboon, every 50 you give a hiqqah.
How much was that guy that had 15,000?
Yeah, so if you sit down and do the math, you'd end up, so he would count up to 121, he would give 3 banat laboon, put them aside, right? And then he would calculate how many times 40 or 50 could be divided into those 15,000, and he would give a number of camel into them, which adds up to a large number but that, when you think about it, it makes a big difference. So you guys want to do the math, or let's do the math?
Just a question.
Just for the fun of it, let's do the math for the fun of it. Yes.
Let's just say you had an extra 200 camels on top of 121 camels. Would you have to give 5 heptan and then whatever, like just slightly more of the bint laboon? Like, would you be doing both calculations?
You do 121, and then until you have another 40, you don't give anything. You have to have either 40 or 50 to give another something else.
Okay.
So when you have 121, you go 3 banat laboon.
Yeah, so if you had 90 extra on top of 121, you'd give 1 of each?
1 of each you would give. To make the least amount of, because at 5 you start giving the shah, and then up to 9 you still give the same number. So if you have 5 you give a shah, if you have 6 you give a shah, you have 8 you give a shah, you have 9 you give a shah. So there's always some amount of camels that may not be accounted for if the math doesn't work out. So what we do is, let's do it on a simple scale.
I think you asked this question. I wasn't clear. So if you get 40, you pay 1 laboon.
Bint laboon.
Okay, but then if you get 50,
We pay a hiqqa instead.
so you don't pay a bint laboon.
No, just a hiqqa.
But then if you have 100, you'd pay 2.
2 hiqqa.
Clear.
Make sense? To make the least amount of camels unaccounted for. You can't say, no, I'll pay 2 bint laboon, that's up for 80, and the next 20 don't amount to a number. No, but you could have paid 2 hiqqa and hit the number perfectly. So you would leave nothing left. If you have 100 more extra over 121, you have 100 more. So either you can say 50-50, that's 2 hiqqa, and there's nothing left. Or 40-40, that's 2 bint laboon, there's 20 left. 20, we don't do anything in 20. No. You make the left amount the least you can, right?
So if you get like 70, you only pay 1 hiqqa.
Yeah, for 70 you only pay a hiqqa. Right? For 70 you only pay a hiqqa. Are you understanding? Yeah.
82, 2 bint laboon is worth more than 1 hiqqa.
Yeah, exactly. So you'd get 2 bint laboon. So if you had 80, you would give 2 bint laboon. You wouldn't give 1 hiqqa, because 2 bint laboon, you leave nothing left of the amount of camels not paid for. If you give 1 bint laboon, you leave 30 camels unaccounted for. So that's not right. So you have to keep down the. So if we were going to do the math on maybe, let's say.
3 plus 120, because we can get 40 evenly, we have to go with 3 times the bint laboon, right?
Yeah.
I just did it. If you had 15,001, then you'd give, and then you divide the remaining after the 121 by 40, then it's 372 camels.
372 camels. There's a good example.
Or like when we learn division in elementary school, whatever gives you the least remainder, right?
The least remainder. That's exactly what we do. So you always keep the least remainder. If you divide it by 50 and you also get a perfect number, then you'd go by the hiqqa because they're worth more. And if not, then if neither of them give you a perfect number, then you try and use both values at the same time. There's a mathematical breakdown. You can turn it into x plus y. You can do that pretty simply. Al-Muhim, the number he gave you is 370 camels. So if you have 15,000 camels, right, and you give away 370, your capital is not scratched that much. You still have 14,700 camels. You have a lot. But those 372 camels will go to people who don't have anything at all. And that's capital for them. Meaning give someone 2 camels, give someone 2 bint laboon, a year later he'll have 4 or 5. Because he's getting females. He's getting a female camel. This female camel can get pregnant and then give birth to another camel. And then you're giving him capital to start off his life. So these actually make a big difference demographically and financially for groups of people that depend on livestock as their primary source of income. So this breakdown is important, but that's how you do the math anyway. Okay.
Do we
Yes.
go over how to pay the zakat?
To whom? At the end, inshallah. At the end, inshallah. This matn doesn't go through it, but I will go through it myself, inshallah, at the end. So at the end of zakat chapter, inshallah, we'll talk about the different people that we pay zakat to. Yes.
I did both calculations, and both of them came out to a decimal. So we get 372 banat laboon or 298 hiqqa. So which one do you go with?
So
By 50 or divided by 40?
with no remainder at all?
Well, like you get like a roundable number, so you round up to the larger value, right?
You always divide by 50 except for the last bit. The last bit will be the one where you divide by.
Yeah. So whatever has a less remainder. Whatever is rounded up quicker, like whatever has less remainder. And then sometimes you can put, it doesn't have to be just hiqqa or just banat laboon. Sometimes you can divide it up so some of them are hiqqat and some of them are banat laboon. So you can do like 50s and 40s, like you can divide it by 90 and then see what that gives you. So there's different ways to do this, yeah.
You know how you said it was like 5 to 9 and then you have to give 1,
Yeah.
what's it called? Yeah, could you, like, let's say there was like 5 left, could you give like a shah? And
No. After 121, you only count 40s and 50s.
only 40s and
Only 14 to 50 after 121. Okay. وأول نصاب So there's really no way for us to compare a hiqqa and a bint laboon, like because it's just 1 year difference. Like so a jad'a is from between 4 and 5 years of age, right? A jad'a is the eldest camel. That after that they become old camels and they lose value. But up to jad'a, they're increase of value. So you start with يعني bint makhad, bint laboon, hiqqa, jad'a. They're getting older. They're increasing in value. After jad'a, they start falling in value because they get a bit older, and then they slaughter them. Usually, if this is prepared for slaughter, then you start slaughtering and then selling meat or using it for for something else. Yeah.
Do you know the lifespan of camel?
Not really. I don't know. I've never actually studied that, subhanAllah. But someone look it up and let us know what the lifespan of a camel. They live a bit. Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, I'm not gonna say anything. I don't know. Yeah.
Is there a situation where you can trade cattle for camels?
For zakah? No, zakah no. Zakah for camels either you're giving away sheep or 40 years or 30, 40 years. I would say 30 years, subhanAllah. So between you give sheep for the first 24, then after that it's only camels. You don't give away cattle. Now for cattle, وأول نصاب البقر 30. The first is 30. وفيها تبيع. فيها تبيع. Now what is a tabi'a? So for 30 we give a tabi'a, which is 1 to 2 years. So between this cow finished its first years and it's in its first. I just mentioned it had its first year birthday, but before it hits 2 years old. That's what a tabi'a is.
So I went to your calf. Calf.
Yeah, a calf. Yeah, so it's 1 year old. وفي 40 مسنة. And a 40. You give a musinna.
Doesn't matter, male or female?
And no, وفي 40 مسنة, and a musinna it's 2 years and دخلت في الثالثة. So it's a 2, but not 3 years yet. Now, وعلى هذا أبدا فقس, and make your analogy like this forever. Cattle are very simple. You just make your analogy. So let's say you have 60 cattle. What do you do? 2 tabi'a. You don't give a musinna and say there's 20 left over. Okay? 70, a musinna and a tabi'a. Type 75, musinna and tabi'a. It doesn't count until we add up to at least 30 or 40. So if you have 120, what do you do?
3 tabi'a.
Or? No. 3 musinna or 4 tabi'a. If you have 120 cattle, either you give 3 musinna or 4 tabi'a. Both are okay. It's no problem. Some scholars prefer you giving the older age because it's the better money, because the value is increasing. So give 3 musinna is better.
Do you also know if they start producing milk?
Again, I'm not. This is not my specialty in life. I don't understand this very well. I can only give you the zakat breakdown. How much they live and how much milk they give, I don't know. I have cleaned, their under cows for a very long time, but I never milked a cow. I don't know how it all works. Yeah.
Does the why we have the cattle also
for livestock, for all livestock. The breakdown I told you, whether it's for selling, whether it's for reproduction, slaughter, or milk, or whether it's for working animal, applies for all types of livestock. Doesn't make a difference whether it's a cow or or whatever it is. All right. وأول نصاب الغنم. That's for cattle. This is cows are pretty simple in terms of understanding what we're going to do with them. Now we're going to talk about the final group. وأول نصاب الغنم 40. Now for sheep and goats. The beginning of the nisab is 40.
So, sorry, sir.
Yes, go ahead.
So if a guy has 4 camels and 29 sheep, he doesn't have to, cattle.
You don't add them together. Each one is done alone.
So 4 camel and 29, he doesn't have to pay zakat, but a guy who has 5 has to pay zakat?
Yeah.
So wouldn't that guy think, well, why is this fair?
Sure, you can do that. But the thing is, here's the thing. If you have it prepared, hold on. What do you have it for? Do you have it for selling?
No.
That's a different thing, right? We go back to if you have it for reproduction and milk, having an extra camel is worth a lot annually. So when you pay this shah, when you give away this one shah, you say, oh, I don't want to give that shah away. Yeah, but if you had an extra camel, Yani for reproduction, slaughter, or milk, you're going to make way more than this shah that you don't want to pay for zakah. So it works out perfect. Like you're not, no one does that. Like unless you're doing it for selling, and that's why for selling we don't count camels. We count we accumulate their value. What is their value? How much does it add to, if we compare it to gold and silver? Does it reach the minimum amount of gold and silver? And then if it does, then we give 2.5% done. But when we have it for reproduction, slaughter, or milk, that's a different thing. Because having an extra sheep or an extra camel, that actually means a lot. It's a good thing, yeah.
Like, I don't want to sound bad, but let's say I have 4 camels and I don't want to pay zakat.
Fine.
But I would have the ability to get one more. But
Good.
I'm not going to get one just because I don't want to pay zakat. Is that
It's
like
fine. No, it's not. It's not a sin. It's it's not very smart, but it's not a sin.
But just,
If you have a camel, you need like work. Okay, so you don't.
Working animals don't. There's no zakah on working animals.
Since you have it, you take milk. You know what I mean?
If it's a working animal, if the intention of having it is working cattle don't give milk. They give very, very small amounts of milk. They can't. You're working it. You're making it plow the earth and do. It doesn't. For livestock to give you milk, it has to graze for a long period of time. It has to be relaxed. If it's working, if it's carrying stuff, it doesn't do it. So this is not.
You have some experience with that whole.
Well, this is kind of common sense stuff, yani. if you know animals, that's how animals work. Now, وَأَوَّلُ نِصَابِ الْغَنَمْ 40. So there's 40.
You're supposed to get through this.
I really don't think we should spend too much time on this stuff.
it's fascinating.
All right. Okay.
I'm going to change my majors. Okay.
Become a goat and a camel solid.
Okay, I'll read it the Arabic and وأول نصاب الغنم 40 وفيها شاة جذعة من الضأن أو ثنية من المعز. So what we have in 40, and this is from 40 to 119. From 40 to 119, you only give either a shah jad'a, so a 1 to 2 year. Again, it's finished its first birthday, hasn't finished its second birthday yet. From sheep, yani. Or we give a thaniya min al-ma'z, a 2 to 3 year old goat. Goats are less valuable than sheep. So if you have from 40 to 119 sheep or goats, either you give zakah in a 1 to 2 year old sheep or a 2 to 3 year old goat. Okay?
Can you read the goat Arabic thing again?
ثنية من المعز. ثنية من المعز. Sorry, I'm not writing very well. So ثنية من المعز. Ma'iz is goat. ثنية is a 2 to 3 year old goat. وفي 121 شاتان. Two shah. From 120 to 200. You pay 2 shah. وفي 201 3 شية. وفي 400 4 شية ثم في كل 100 شاه. And then from now on, every 100 a shah. So from 450 to 119, you give 1 shah or 1 thaniya min al-ma'iz, one of them, either or. 120 to 200, you give 2 shah. And then from 201 to 300, 3 shah, then 300 to 400, 4 shah, and then as you go. Yes? Sorry?
For 40 to 119.
Yes. Jad'a. Shah is jad'a. Sorry, this is till 400. Sorry. Yeah. And then every 100. No, what am I saying? Sorry. It's confusing sometimes. So 399, 3 shah, and then 400 you do 4 shah, and then every 100 a shah. Yeah, sorry. So that's the breakdown. Sorry, that's how it's done. Again, these things are unless you specialize in calculating zakah for people who have livestock, you don't really you study them once, and then that's pretty much the end of your exposure to it. So this is the breakdown for sheep. From 40 to 119, yes.
From 301.
No, from في 201 3 شياه وفي 400 4 شياه. No, from 201 to 399 there's only 3. Yeah, so that's the Shafi'i. There's difference with the Hanafi and the Hanabila, but that's what the Shafi'i is. From 400, so 400 you say 4 shah.
One after that, each one has a little.
So 400 you get 4 shah, you have to pay 4. Then 100, 500, 5 shah, 600, 6 shah. But if you have 660, 6 shah, 699, 6 shah, go on. So you can say, oh, I'm going to make them 699 so I don't pay an extra shah. Fine. But you lost 1 shah, you would have paid zakah anyway. Yeah. So what's the difference? Pay zakah and get ajr for it instead of, so. Yeah, so there's really no big deal here. But again, these are, there are ways if you want to play around with zakah, but the idea is that the concept of zakah is that you are purifying your wealth. You want to purify it so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he says, oh, it's 903. Okay, so we'll stop here. Let me just read the last points so that you guys know what it is, and then we'll move on, because the next time we'll start with gold and silver. وَالْخَلِيطَانِ يُزَكِّيَانِ زَكَاةَ الْوَاحِدِ بِسَبْعِ شَرَائِطٍ. And if you have 2 herds of sheep, right, you can give zakah as if they're 1 herd if there are a number of conditions, with 7 conditions. إذا كان المراح واحدا والمسرح واحدا والمرعى واحدا والفحل واحدا والمشرب واحدا والحالب واحدا والموضع الحلب واحدا. All right, so if they sleep in the same place at night, and if they graze in the same place during the day, and they eat from the same crop, and it's the same male for all of them, or the same group of males, and they drink from the same place of water, and their milk is used cumulatively together. So in order for you to pay for this group of sheep that is owned by 2 or 3 people, as if it's just 1 herd, meaning these only apply like this, then they have to be treated as if they're 1 group in everything. And then you can pay as if it's 1 group. Now you say, well, how does that make a difference? It makes a big difference. It makes actually a very big difference, because if I own 200, you own 200, you own 200, we're gonna have the breakdown is gonna be different. So if the numbers are a bit different, 201, 203, the breakdowns will be different. We'll end up paying more because it's owned by each one individually. So if you want to pay for this whole herd as if it's 1 herd, then everything regarding this herd has to be the same. This happens a lot. So let's say you and I and someone else, we buy a herd of sheep with the intention of reproduction or slaughter or milk, and we don't really go there. We just have someone else do all the work. Then we can give zakah as if it's 1 herd because they do the whole thing together. But if we're not, if I'm taking care of my sheep different from your sheep, you're putting them in a different place, but we just bring them to the same place at night or something, then no, we have to pay for each herd on its own. Does that make sense? Okay, so next time we'll start with gold and silver. Inshallah, jazakumullah khair, subhanallahi wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk, wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin.